Good morning, everybody. This is Venus from Heart's Desire by Venus, and I am back filming today another episode of Jacket to Field Guide. I guess episode's not really the word, but another video in this progression. So in my last video, which I will put the link below, I took an old leather jacket that had been well used but was beyond its time and covered my soon-to-be field guide with it. As you can see, I glued it all down. It's all dry now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on a couple things today. I'm going to cover the inside of this with its base. The other thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to take a piece. This is from the lapel that had the buttons on it, and I was trying to figure what to do. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these buttons off, and I'm going to sew it, attach it right to the middle here, and I'm going to use it as a closure. I figured, why not? These are perfectly good buttons and they match. But before I do that, because once I sew that button on the front, this book is not going to lay as flat anymore. And what I want is for it to lay flat, because I'm going to trace around this so that when I go and stitch this inside lining, I'll have a marker here. It's kind of a cheat, because yeah, I could measure and be exact, but again, I've probably stated this in many of my videos. I'm not very precise, so just trying to get a good pen. If you have chalk, this works good. Tailor's chalk. I of course can't find mine, so I'm just using a pen right now, because it's just got to be, yeah, it's just got to be a rough idea of how big this is, because I'm going to stitch the edges all the way around it down before I glue it on. Let's just see if this is working. Kinda. Let's try a different pen. I think this one's working a little better. This is kind of bad. I'm trying to find, can't find anything when you want it, of course, but I think this will do. I said I just wanted a vague outline so that I can do that. Okay, so I have my vague outline. I can see that enough. So I'm going to just set that aside for a moment, and I'm going to work on putting this button on. I've still been kind of figuring out which one I want for the front on this, because it's like a trifold. My concept is, I think, is I want the bigger side to be out, because I'm thinking this side here, when I flip it open, this is going to be where my journal spine is. And this side here, I want to put a few pockets, and in the spine here, I had an idea for some specimen bottles to put in there. Because it's wider, I think I can do that. So I think this is going to be my front. So I'm just going to take my button and I'm going to snip it off here. And on the original jacket, you know, usually for these kinds of things, they'll use a button on the front and a little space button on the back. That's just to lock it into place so it doesn't go anywhere. And I'm going to use some brown thread here. And what kind of thread I'm using, just because I have lots of it and it's strong, is I'm using some outdoor thread. So it's nice and strong for what I want to do here. So I'm just going to cut off a bunch. Okay, and before I go any farther, I want to punch a hole. So I'm just going to decide. I think I'm going to do it. Right about there, I think. That looks centered, or pretty darn close. That'll be good enough for me. I'm just going to see if my crocodile if I can get my crocodile on there, I will do a cut or a hole. Nope. Ooh, now I can barely get it off. So I'm going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, which is with my handy-dandy tool here, my self-adhesive mat. Where did I put it? All right, and that's my mark right there. In the camera, you probably can't see it very well. And I'm just going to punch a hole through the leather and the book cover, just to make it easier for this to work. So this is an old memory making set. It has like a punch and a bunch of these little circle dies so that you can just pound it in and make a hole. Let's see, did I go all the way through? I did. All right, so it's kind of hard to see on this side because I put it through the seam, but then it went all the way through to the back, which is perfect. That way I have it secured enough. Put my mat away. All right, so now I'm just going to take my thread, which I'm going to double over. You could have probably glued this, but I'm worried about it being tight enough, or, you know, moving too much, because I'm hoping it's going to be used as I am intended as a field guide, and I want it to be pretty secure. So I've got my button for the back side, because this is the inside. So I got my button here, and I'm just going to snag a little piece of this leather with my needle, just so I've got a tail in one side of the buttonhole. Thread it through the front here. And I'm sure most of you know how to stitch in a button. Now, because it's got a post on here on this button, I am threading this through, but then I'm jamming that post right through the that hole that we just made, so that it's got a little bed to set on. There we go. Threading it back through the button. So now you can see the button's lying flat on this side. This one is in that hole, so it's not a huge raise, but enough for me. My plan is to put some elastic closure or maybe a leather strap through that, like wrap around it for the closure. So I want it raised up a bit, but I don't want it too floppy. So I'm just going to go through and do that a couple of times here to secure that button. That's pretty good. And then for those of you who sew a bit, you know, you go back down through the button, but not all the way through the other side. Trying to get that in there. Punch it through. And then you're going to wrap your cord a few times around the base of the button. Up again. Oh, it's tight. Up again. And now I'm going to do my knot through the top part here. And that should be secure enough, because the other thing is I am going to cover this with some linen that you saw there over the top of this journal. So I'm not too concerned. But one other thing I am going to do is I'm just going to take some clear glue, and I'm just going to stick it a little bit under the button and over the button where the threads are, just to guarantee that I've got a good good seal there. And I'm just going to actually press that down there. Perfect. Let that dry. Now back to this piece here. I traced the outline on. I'm just going to put that over there so it dries. What I'm going to do is this whole outline now. It's hard to see on the linen here, but I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to fold it under and stitch it on that line all the way around. So this would be now the side that you're going to look at when you open the journal. This part with the edges is going to be laying on the inside, and this is going to hide all my edges to keep the fraying from happening. On this particular book, I don't want the fraying. Other times, you know, I've wanted it, but this time I don't, and I wanted that stitched look around. So I'm going to go and do that, and I will be right back. All right, so I'm back. I stitched my fabric. I'm just going to trim my edges. I decided to stitch with a brown on the top. I thought it would just kind of suits this since I've got the brown leather on the other side. I'm just trimming my tails here. And I'm just going to lay it out, make sure I'm good. Usually I'm kind of off, and holy smokes, I think I'm actually pretty good. That's the first time ever. Wow. Okay, and I did just a tiny little seam you can see here all the way around. I actually kind of cheated. I had my zipper foot on my machine from the last project I did, and it just worked out perfectly. Let me have just the tiniest little thing there, tiniest little seam. So I'm going to lay this out, but I'm going to start in the middle page here because I got to work it down into the spines here. So I'm going to use again my repositionable ODF. This will allow me to get it in place a bit here, and then I'm going to work my way out. I'm just going to spray that, and I'm going to spray it in the spine. That will just give me a little bit of security, and then what I'm doing is I'm putting my regular glue right in here and close to the edge. The repositionable will just let me have some time to play, and make sure you get right in that gusset because that's going to be the area that's a problem first. So that's all I'm going to start with because I got to work it in. And I use my bone folder here. So basically I'm just going to lay it out. Here's my roller here, and this will allow me to, so I can see here, make sure I am even this way as well. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect because this is supposed to be a field guide and worn, but I do want to get a good adhesive on here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm a little bit over on this edge here. Nothing a little tweak in here can't fix. There we go. And because it's linen, it does have a tendency to move a bit and stretch. So this is a good way to play with it, but still be secure. So there's a few wrinkles in here, and that again I'm not worried about because I do want this to be old and worn a bit, and when I go and distress this, that's going to pick up very well. So I'm just taking my bone folder here and I'm just getting right in that spine crease. Because remember, I just ran the glue just on the one side of it, so just making sure it gets all in there, and then okay, so now I'm going to seal the rest of this, and again I'm going to lay generous on the glue because I want this to have a good stick here on the spine, and I'm just going to work it in. And it's going to be a bit bumpy because remember I did put that leather in there, and so it adds a little bit of bulk on the ends, but And I'm not too worried about the glue seeping through here because, again, I am doing other stuff. This is just to cover my handiwork here. So just getting it in there. And then I'm just going to secure it all the way through on the other side here. Now, if you've got a better technique to do this, definitely let me know. But I find lots of glue, a little bit of working. I managed to get it down pretty good. And then now that I'm on this side, I'm going to use that ODF again, right on top. Give me, because it gets right to the edges there. Lay my fabric, stretch it to where it needs to go, and perfect. And just work it around that button, which, remember, we did put glue down there too. And work those edges. Now, I got to the edges, and again, once this dries, I have a tendency to go back and just make sure everything is good. Now, see, it's sticking out just a little bit, and that is a-okay with me. Gives me that look that I'm kind of going for. And we're just going to do the same thing to the other side. Start with the spine here. And this is a bigger spine than the other side. Just work it in there. This is why I do this before I go to my other job and I get to work and I got paint stuck on me, glue parts stuck on me. I'm sure the girls I work with there wonder what I do in the mornings before I come to work. All right, so now I'm just going to make sure I get right around the edges. I'm generous with the glue in between. And then again, just to lock it all in place, repositionable. Because once it sits there for a bit, that repositionable will set up with that glue. So, but this just allows me to work it to stay where I want it to go. All right. See how that goes. So then this is in the front, and sticking over just a bit there, a little too much, so I'm going to just bring it back. Again, this is why you've got some of that repositionable on there. Your other glue isn't quite dry enough yet that this will allow me to still move it and get it into the position I want. A little bit of a wrinkle in there, but again, that's going to be covered, so I'm not too concerned. And I'm just going to touch more glue on the edge here where I moved it. All right. I think there, a little sticking over is good, not too much, just a little bit. And just to secure the edges, I take my little craft clips, and I do like to just stick them, like especially in the corners, because I did miter the corners on the fabric a little bit to take out some of the bulk, but you do want it to still be pretty secure there. So just going to do that on all the corners. And when I run out of craft clips, I'm using my handy dandy clothespins. And then the only other thing I like to do is in the spines, I like to clip as well. And I use my bulldog clips. Honestly, I use whatever clips I got kicking around, but the bulldog clips work good, especially, ooh, that one's a bit thick for that clip. Ooh, that clip's a bit thick. Let's find some more clips here. In just a sec, I'll find some more bulldog clips. All right, I couldn't find any, but I'm just going to use a couple of the large paper clips. That'll do the job as well. It's just to get it in there and keep it laying flat until that dries. And one on this side here. Perfect. All right, so now that you can see it's going to dry. It's got a few wrinkles, which I'm okay with because I am going to cover. But it was very minor wrinkles, and we sewed the button on the front. So now I'm just going to let this dry, and I will come back with another video another day. I just wanted to show you how to complete the inside of the field guide in case you're following along or in case you haven't done this before. Anyways, if you like this video, please hit the like button and the subscribe. Don't forget, the kit that I will be using for this is from Kelly Crafts by Kelly. Kelly's Crafts by Kelly. Sorry, that's a mouthful for me this morning. I obviously need more coffee. And I will put a link to her beautiful kit down below. Next step, I will probably be diving right into this beautiful paper. So thanks again for watching, and hopefully I will see you again soon.